What happens when you can't use Facebook ads to grow your business? For an increasing number of businesses, this has become a reality with random bans and hacked accounts. It's a huge amount of stress and time to get resolved. We've had a couple of clients that it's happened to, and believe me, the stress is real. And what if you've never planned to use them anyway? Or if you have a business that's not allowed to use them because they're not allowed in Facebook's terms of services? Well, our client, the Cannabis Clinic, is like that. They've never been allowed to use them because it's against what Facebook is allowed to do in terms of drug use. They see cannabis and immediately go, oh. But of course, the Cannabis Clinic provides medicinal, prescription-only pain and anxiety relief to thousands of Kiwis. Their product is not allowed to be advertised on Facebook, so they needed other alternatives. Instead of sitting there and getting frustrated, founder and owner Dr Waseem Alzaher decided to grasp another alternative, marketing automation, specifically using ActiveCampaign to build community, connection, and help attract patients needing his help. We're lucky enough to work with Wazeem and help him every month with marketing automation. And when I say we, I mean my husband Rod, because he is the ActiveCampaign complete whiz. Wazeem asks tricky questions and has helped us discover the real breadth and depth of how far you can take this platform that is so flexible. In this episode, we walk through why he uses it, what he uses it for, and how he's planning to go deeper into its use in 2023. So many people just scrape the surface of what's possible with marketing automation. So have a listen and see, is there stuff in here that I could do? Dr. Waseem is sometimes called the cannabis doctor, but in reality, he really wants other people's lives made better, and he does that through a heart as an entrepreneur and as a doctor. He started the Cannabis Clinic back in 2018 and has never looked back. He loves challenging existing beliefs and solving problems, which we can see in his weekly emails. He is honestly the best person about thinking about how can I make this better. I love his approach. His clinic is leading the medicinal cannabis industry in New Zealand, and he's truly a beautiful human. I hope you really enjoyed this podcast because I know I really enjoyed talking to Wazeem. Welcome. This is Mippet Marketing, and I am your host, Rachel Klaver. I love helping small business owners become more confident and more capable with their marketing. So this podcast is all here to help you do just that. It's me and the help of some great guests helping you learn new skills, new strategies and ideas. Let's jump in and get started. Hi, it's Rachel Klaver here, your host of Mippet Marketing, and welcome to the podcast. Sorry for the hype. I got a bit distracted because I think I'm recording on a different part and I got a bit perturbed by technology, which is ironic because we're talking about technology today, mainly marketing automation. Our guest today is Waseem Alzaher. I told him I would have to struggle with pronouncing his name because in my head, I know that's right, but then I look at it and go, oh no, don't make a mistake. And he owns a business, or do you own it, Waseem?
Yes, we do. I started the business.
Fantastic. I just suddenly realized I should have checked that. So Wazeem owns a business called Cannabis Clinic, which is maybe not what you think it is, but is an amazing business doing a lot of good in New Zealand. And we are very lucky in the fact that we work with Wazeem in terms of helping him with marketing automation. And my husband, Rod, who does that side of the business, told me I had to have Wazeem on because Wazeem has got an incredible mind. He also adores the model of and the services that Wazeem does, but also because Wazeem is got an incredible brain that just really wants to serve his customers and serve his clients with as much help and support as possible, and so uses marketing automation to make that happen. And so we get lots of curly questions, which makes things really interesting. So Wazeem, without any further ado, do you want to just first welcome to the show and thanks for coming?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rachel. Appreciate it, and thanks for all the compliments.
We're only just getting started on the compliments. So do you want to tell us a little bit about you and why you started Cannabis Clinic and what it is? Because let's just make it clear, it's not a free-for-all place to go and get a high dose.
Correct, yeah.
Not in New Zealand. That's not how it works in New Zealand.
Yes, that's right. Although we came close with the referendum.
Very close.
Yeah. So, thanks again for having me, Rachel. So, my name is Waseem, and I'm a medical doctor. So, I completed my training at the University of Otago Medical School 9 or 10 years ago now. And why I started Cannabis Clinic, it was we started around the time that the law changed in New Zealand to allow medicinal cannabis products to be prescribed.
Mm.
And yeah, I was looking for something to more meaningful to give back, and something a bit more challenging, that extra challenge, something meaningful to be able to do with my career and to do with myself, beyond working as a family doctor and as an urgent care doctor.
Mm.
So the law changed at that time, and I thought it was a great opportunity, and it sounded pretty out there. And in my history, I've done some pretty out there things. So I thought, okay, that's a good match. And I already had a green car at that stage, so I
Perfect.
thought, okay,
Easy for branding.
so I thought, okay, let's do it. And to be honest, when we started, it was never the clinic. I was looking at products. I was looking at sort of bringing products into New Zealand, as several other companies are doing. And it quickly became apparent to me when we started that process that people were asking me to prescribe it for them, or asking me about the prescription process, and explaining the pain and the issues they were having trying to access these medicines legally.
Mm.
And I thought, oh wow, this is something genuine out there. People are genuinely struggling with this. Maybe I can step in to help. And that's how it sort of got started. It was a bit rocky at the start because I wasn't fully committed, in terms of bonding my reputation to have that association, or
Yeah.
it was quite a hard decision. But once the decision was made, there was no looking back.
Because there is like, because we'll talk a little bit about who needs it. Because I know obviously people like with palliative care, that's definitely a group of people that you'd definitely be working with, and that's highly meaningful. But there is this idea that it's a bit, there are in some sectors of New Zealand, there is this idea that it's a bit dodgy,
Yes.
isn't there? Because
Absolutely.
they confuse the difference of using it as a medicinal help and support for people who need it as part of their health journey, and also people who are using it recreationally, which is legal in many places, but isn't still legal here. So like they get that confusion going and may make an assumption around you being this person that's just doling out cannabis to everybody.
Yes. Yeah, correct. So it depends what side of the equation you're on, Rachel. If
Yeah.
you're on the equation of, hey, I think it might help me, then you're thinking, oh, it must be for those who are at the end of life or suffering
Yes.
significantly. If you're not a person who is looking into medicinal cannabis, then you might think, okay, well, this is just for those people who are, wanting to get legal cannabis to get high, basically. But it couldn't be further from the reality, and that's why we have so much work to be done when it comes to marketing and education. Because for us, marketing is a lot about, it's
Mm.
called marketing, but for us, it's education. It's the age old thing where you don't need to sell. You don't need to sell something if it genuinely helps people. People will naturally, they just need to know about it, and they will naturally come to you and ask the questions that they need to ask. So yeah, but, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, because for you, like the education is particularly important when you think that there are people who are in a lot of pain or are in so much discomfort and may have a barrier themselves of going, I'm desperate, I need something, but I don't want to be seen as a stoner, or I don't want to be seen. So for educating so that all the people around them as well are supporting them and encouraging them to come and seek out a treatment that can really help give them relief.
Mm.
That's a really important part of it, isn't it? It's not just to educate people who may never need it. It's actually also to help educate people who do need it or know people who need it.
Oh, totally, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we're here. What I commonly say to people is we're here to make people more functional, not high, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
our approach is. So the most common things that we see at the clinic is, yes, pain is a big one. It's probably about half of what we do, chronic pain, or any sort of pain really for that matter, whether it be a mild, moderate, or severe. We see a lot of people with sleeping problems and insomnia, and we also see a lot of anxiety and other mental health conditions. And for the most part, a lot of these people are your ordinary kind of
Yeah.
Kiwis that you see, just in your ordinary life. It could be your kid's school teacher who we've kind of
Yeah.
consulted with. It could be even your own doctor that we've seen, and it could be, athletes, kids, old, end of life care, and everything in between. And that's the thing, that's been the eye-opening experience for us here at the clinic, has been like, wow, this is really something that is, a product that is plant-based. It's not artificial or processed,
Mm.
and it's changed the lives of thousands of people through our services. And that's absolutely amazing. And that's what's kept us going, throughout the years, in terms of doing what we're doing, because there's a lot of judgment and obstacles
Mm.
that come in the way. And yeah, that's the part about the education that becomes important. It's to say to people, actually, that this is not a bad product. This is not, because it's not stigmatized. There's no
Yeah.
judgment. You're not gonna grow dreadlocks and become Bob Marley by using the one product, and that's it. You're in that category, and it's done. Game over.
Because I
So,
think it is not. I mean, that's the thing. If they come and talk to you, so legally to get the cannabis from you, they have to come and make like have a normal medical appointment. Is that right, or do they get a referral?
we accept people who just come to us knocking our doors, because
Mm.
a lot of people would be uncomfortable talking
Talking
to
to
their
their
family
doctor.
doctor about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if the doctor looks after their partner, their kids, their
Yeah.
parents, and their grandparents, then they feel a bit embarrassed to talk to them about it.
And that's where you, as a medical practitioner and a qualified medical practitioner, and then your team, I also imagine you've built other people who are in that medical practitioner space as well to do that. That's why it's so important to have a qualified doctor who's leading that, because they do need to still have that proper prescription for it. It is a prescription only service. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. So you're consulting with a medically registered doctor,
Mm.
and in our case, that's either a general practitioner or a integrative doctor, or sometimes even a hospital specialist that we've got on the team. So they would sit down, understand what's going on for you. What are the issues? What's your medical background? And then basically make a personalized and tailored treatment plan as to how we're going to start the process with us, and what we can do to help.
Mm.
Mm.
So we talked about it's for pain relief, and you also talked about anxiety and sleep issues and things like that. So I'm assuming that there's different levels of doses, and that's part of why it's so important to get a professional coming and giving you that prescription, because you've got to really make sure that you're not, like, if it is a teacher, for example, they need to have a dealing with their pain or being able to sleep through the night, but not so much that they're so chill and that they're zoned out during the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the power of having a medical model where
Mm.
where everything is fairly controlled. So we know exactly the doses we're using, we know the products, and we're using the lowest effective dose to get the most benefit for each person. So and that's the whole point. And I mean that applies to every medicine. I mean, it's talking about for example, sleeping
Mm.
problems. For anyone who's used a sleeping pill, Zopiclone, well, firstly, it's highly addictive. A week and a half on those, and you are guaranteed to develop some form of tolerance and dependence on them. But you also feel really horrible the following day.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
wake up and you're just
hangovers.
like, oh, yeah, literally, you thought, oh my God, what happened the
Mm.
night before? And that's not ideal. So I mean, that applies to all medicines. And I guess the beauty
Yes.
about the products that we're using is we've got such a fine control over the dose, that we can tailor it to each person and basically try and use the minimum dosage needed to achieve the most benefit without
Mm.
any adverse effects and side effects. And the reality is, we've had we've had no serious adverse reactions or harms done in the over 15,000 people that we've seen so far.
That's
Um,
incredible. I mean, that is, I remember watching a documentary on, I think it was Netflix, and it was talking about when they first brought in, I think it was like Nurofen or something like that into the market, and but it was it was one that was more addictive, and bringing it in and selling it. The drug companies were selling it and saying there'll be no results and stuff. And then all these people, I think it was Oxy. It might have been Oxy, like it was one of those, but it was like, oh, it's not addictive. And then all these people were getting majorly addicted to this drug in these small towns in America,
yes,
and so it is that thing of like, when we're in pain, we get so desperate, we'll just take anything. I've got a couple of friends who are in chronic pain, and I can have 2 days of pain and go, I would do anything. I don't even know how they survive and live a life
yes,
in chronic pain. And so it's very easy for us, if we're not in that space, to not understand the desperation of just taking anything. So having something that isn't going to have
massive other side effects is huge.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's massive. And, you know, coming from a medical background, a lot of the medicines we do use on a regular basis have some
Yeah.
very common and quite significant side effects.
Mm.
You know, you speak to anyone who's using pain medicines or sleeping medicines or antidepressants, etc., they will tell you about, you know, some of the adverse effects that they experience. And just to have the option of using something that's plant-based and that
Mm.
can be so well tolerated has been an
Amazing.
absolute yeah, it's been an eye-opener for me personally, and you know, and for the people involved. When you get someone,
Yeah, absolutely. Satisfying for you.
oh, absolutely, yeah, it's. I mean, at this stage, I've my role in the clinic is to support the you know, our impact and our growth. You know, not so much on the consulting side, but I'm always, you know, seeing these stories come across, you know, through email and just talking to our doctors and you know, the experience. You imagine someone coming into the clinic for the first time that they'd left their house in 10 or 15 years because they haven't been able
Oh,
to walk past the
amazing.
litter box, and they come in to pick up their medicines in person and they literally are crying and hug you. I mean, that makes the whole everything we're doing worthwhile. You know, that
Mm.
is one life that's been, you know, significantly improved.
Is
Um,
there limitations for you? Because I mean, there are limitations anyway as medical professionals about what you can and can't say in terms of marketing. Like, you know, there's rules around promises and things like that. Is it more complex having this other layer of also the fact that you are prescribing cannabis? Like, is it
so
hard in terms of marketing, in terms of education to know where those lines are? Are they quite structured or are they a bit tenuous?
yes. What marketing? We don't do any marketing. Totally. It's a total minefield. It's a total minefield because of well, firstly, legal. You know, medicinal cannabis products are legally unapproved medicines, which means that they haven't been proven to help for any specific condition. So they cannot be advertised in any way. So, you know, on TV you might see paracetamol, extra
Mm.
brufen plus, or this, that advertised. Yeah, they're advertised because they're approved for pain. Although, you know, you talk to any gastroenterologist, every day people are dying from anti-inflammatory drugs causing
Oh, I've had weight
ulcers.
loss surgery, so I can't have anti-inflammatory drugs. It would kill my tummy. Like I know, and you know,
Yes,
and so I know how damaging they are because I have a, you know, a smaller stomach, and
yes,
they would do immense damage to me if I had them. So I can only imagine. And I used to, I remember, you know, 20 years ago, I was addicted to them. I would have a permanent headache. And I was just kept on swelling the back, and then I went cold turkey, and suddenly the pain went away because my brain was creating pain receptors for them. I was totally addicted to them.
how interesting. Yeah, there's
Yeah, they
certainly,
were just Nurofen,
and that's
you know.
Nurofen, which you can buy
Yeah,
over the just
yeah,
from Pack and Save, you
exactly.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I totally get that. I do think, you know, in New Zealand we are very easy to like throw back stuff, and but you're right that you can prescribe that. And because I know it's the same with like even like an osteo or something like that. Like we've run ads for osteos and physios, and what you can and can't say is very hard when you're in the health sector.
very much so. Yeah, and even more so for medicinal cannabis because being
Yeah.
unapproved means MedSafe has a piece of legislation which basically says you cannot indicate the availability of any of these medicines to anyone in any way, shape, or form.
Mm.
So that's fairly, you know, a market, like a fairly wide ban on any kind of advertising or marketing per se. So we work along, within the legislation kind of provided by MedSafe, and then there's obviously, as a medical clinic, there's requirements from the medical council
Yeah.
as to what we can and can't say in terms of, yeah, messaging and marketing. And then on top of that, you've got the digital platforms which have their own policies around cannabis and what you can and can't say.
Facebook complete ban pretty much, isn't it? Like in
Complete
terms of
ban.
advertising, you wouldn't be able to do any advertising because as soon as it's cannabis, it's drug.
Correct. You
Yeah.
couldn't do any advertising whatsoever on Google, you know, social media. And yeah, so it's certainly a challenge, and that's a big challenge. But the challenges are also opportunities, right? Opportunities to innovate.
Absolutely. So you would use a lot of SEO, I'm imagining. So you're just using the organic people finding you would be part of what you're doing. So you're trying to get it, and obviously word of mouth. And I think probably the fact that there aren't that many other people in your space in New Zealand would also help at this current time in terms of just people finding you. But I guess is that one of the reasons that why email marketing and marketing automation is so important to you, because you have to make sure you look after anyone that actually comes in the door, essentially, and whether it's the website or physically in your door.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so we do rely on search engine type of marketing. Absolutely, that is one of the things we rely on, but it's not the only thing we rely on, because we got, when we were too dependent on search engine, we got punished a couple of times, just through natural search variability and search engine algorithm updates. And I think and it actually got us for that period of time into quite a bit of a circle, because whenever you rely on something external, and you take the risk of being hit from under you. And so there were some very, very hard days and weeks when things were fluctuating, but what we came to realize is that actually, even on search engine, it's actually, because it's considered by Google a restricted industry, or an industry that's a higher risk,
they're always going to deprioritize it.
Yeah, well, that variability is quite high. So day and night, it's just jumping up and down, and it's quite unpredictable. And so relying on kind of a single point, or reliance on something is limited. And even marketing, to be honest with you, Rachel, is also limited, because at one point in time we got kicked out of our marketing platform that we're using, our email platform, just overnight, because they just banned us because we apparently violated their terms and conditions.
Oh, so hard.
So yeah, we had to dig our way back into that one.
It is an interesting thing for me, because I think one of the things we forget about platforms like Facebook or Google or things is that they are owned by humans. And I've got quite a funny story from years ago. I was at a Vodafone party, and they were releasing the new Google phone, and Vodafone was doing this massive, it was the best, I think it was the best party I've ever been to. Like, it had like a massage wall and a vodka fountain, and it was like, things got a bit blurry after the vodka fountain, but like, it was this massive party. And they had some women that were body painted with the Google logo on them, and then one with the Google phone. And a friend of mine who's a blogger, he took photos of them, put them on his, covered the event by taking photos of it. And the Google, I don't know if I should be telling the story, but I'm halfway through it. I have to keep on going. The Google owner was quite a strong Christian. I had quite strong kind of like traditional values. And he had a Google alert, and he saw these pictures of the Google logo on these bodies, and was like, that's not appropriate for Google logo, and pulled the phone out of the New Zealand market.
Oh, you serious?
And I always like that story. Like, just me as a marketer and storyteller may not have told that 100% correctly. So apologies to anyone if I got something wrong on there. But that is true, that they pulled the phone after the party with the body painting. And I always remember that, because I always think whenever someone gets complaining about like a rule, I always think, but the rules are made by these people right at the top who have their own values, and those values come through, and then we're always at the mercy of the values of that company, of who owns that company. And it's just a little reminder that building our business purely on a company where we're always going to be at the mercy of someone else's values is always going to be a dangerous thing.
It's a dangerous position to be in. Yeah. That's an interesting story, but I think it's important that we keep that in mind, because we're not talking about, if it's your own thing and you're a solo contractor, and you've got clients, and then that's fine. Like, something happens, you can kind of improvise or do something else on the side. But when you've got a whole team to support,
you're paying you to support them, you've got to keep on making sure they're fed.
Exactly, you've got to make sure that the business is cycling and going. Then when something like that happens, it can be very, very disruptive, because it puts stuff. It could literally put the whole thing on the edge.
But can you have got a Facebook page, like you can have those things, but it's just more the paid advertising is where it's going to become a problem most of the time.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And have you found that you have, as the owner, have you had to kind of step out of, like, I imagine that as a doctor, you've had to have people relationships and those sort of things. but doctors don't normally go into medicine to become the face of a business and show, talk to people as the leader of a business. That's not why most people are motivated to become a doctor in the first place. Has that been an interesting journey for you to kind of have to step out and do like things like this, I guess, where you're having to kind of be that person to make sure the business is growing and functioning?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been it's been a very rewarding, and also rewarding because it's been such a learning experience for me personally as well. So I would definitely, if I was to go back, I'd do it all over again, but do it quite differently, and avoid some mistakes, and achieve what we've done in a much quicker time frame. But I really enjoyed stepping out of that role and being in that position. I think it's for me. Certainly, it's for me. I really enjoy it.
So let's talk a little bit about the marketing, because you've done some really clever things, and I am pretty foggy what they are, because Rod gets very excited about technical stuff, and he's got like a selective listening thing with me with 90% of the things I say. And then when he gets really technical, my brain just nods and smiles. But I know that some of the things that you have done, which are really clever, is you have done quite a bit around using marketing automation, but also you realize a lot of your clients wanted to be talked to via text message. Is this right? Or you use text messaging as part of what you do?
We try and communicate, because it's all about education and communication, right? So we try and use ways and methods to communicate with people who are either our clients or are expressing interest in what we do, and we use both email and text message at this point in time. That's correct. Yeah.
And is it the text message because it makes it more accessible, so that you're not having to have people who are reliant on like loading up their desktop or maybe going to an email? Because I'm imagining if you are in pain or things like that, we often have our phones near us because we're connected, and a text message is a lower effort way of communicating, receiving a communication, than having to read something in an email.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So you've got much higher open rates and faster response times using text messages, and we haven't specifically tracked in terms of how successful the text messages or compared to emails have been for us, but just generally speaking, like you said, it's people generally have their phone there the whole time, and usually when you get a text message, there's that incentive to really open it and see who's
absolutely. Yeah, it's like an instant thing, because I didn't say before, but you use ActiveCampaign, which we're partners for, which is obviously where that relationship's being built up. And I do know one of the things, and we talked about this before you came online, you do like stretching the limits and saying, I have an idea of how I want to serve my customer. Do you call them patients or clients?
I genuinely like to call them people, but when I can't use people, I say clients.
Okay,
sometimes
clients.
The sentence doesn't work.
Yeah, I understand that. I like people, but I guess it would be hard because we have to look at what people.
Yes, exactly,
but when you are trying to talk to the people that you've had interactions with, your clients, what are you driven by? Like, what is it that's making you go, I need to do this sort of thing? Like, what are you looking for when you're going, can this do this? Is it more education, or where are the ideas for you coming that make you go, I need to see this change, or I want to see, can this platform do it?
That's a good question. The idea that at the end of the day, the driving factor for me is seeing the positive results they were achieving and asking myself the question as to where in our process or what we're doing we can do more of that. And that gets my mind thinking as to, well, where are the holes, or where are the issues that we're facing, and then naturally things start going through my mind as I put myself in the position of other people that are maybe coming to our website for the first time or interacting with us the first time, and just doing that for fun, just to see what the touch points, or what it looks like, and what it could look like. Obviously, I'm very biased because I know exactly what it will look like after they do various actions, but that's where the inspiration comes from. It's thinking, well, I think we've got something amazing. I think we're helping a lot of people. I think we're doing something really positive. How do we do more of it?
Because I think it's really interesting, because I know that one of the things that you do really well when you're emailing Rod, and I have had to learn actually to do it myself, is I I tend to jump from, I've had this thing that I want to do to serve our customers, but then I immediately start limiting it with my own headspace of what I think Campaign can do. Or I jump into the solution and come to him and say, I need you to do blah, blah, blah. And he's like, why do you need it? And I'm like, no, I just need you to do it. And he's like, no, why? Because if I understand why, I can probably find a better way of doing it than the thing you think. And you telling me the thing that you want fixed is not going to do potentially what you need. And so one of the things you do really well is you go, this is how I want to serve my people. This is what I want the experience to be, instead of I need you to do this, 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 and this, because he'll often find a better way of doing that.
Yes, and I
right?
must compliment Rod on that
wisdom,
ability.
right?
What's that?
That's the wisdom, though. Like what I think you do really well, and I think it's a really good thing for business owners to do, is don't always think, how do I make that happen? Find someone who can do that. Actually think, what is it that I want to do to serve my customers before you jump into solution solving? Because that's the thing that I think makes it really special.
Oh, totally. That's totally right. And I must commend Rod on his ability to have helped us so far with this creative and good ways of coming up with solutions. But yeah, I think that's very important. And maybe that's one of the things that medicine, my background in medicine, I've done a lot of urgent care, sort of emergency type of medicine. And so I've always found myself in positions where I've had to make very quick but important decisions about things. And what that's helped me to do is to be very clear in my mind what the priorities are. And I think that's step number one, is identify, and that's what I do on a daily basis. My daily routine in the morning is identifying priorities, resetting priorities, and making sure I know exactly what the problem is that we're dealing with. And then once you know the problem, then it's determining what the solution to that problem is. And then once you've got that in your mind clear, then it's about determining, well, how can I solve that problem, and what are the different ways I can go about it? And if it's not me directly solving that issue, then who can help me and support me to solve that problem, as opposed to being restricted and saying, oh, I know how to do this.
Yes.
Let's do this, because it might solve
this.
this.
How I can fix it, because this is all I know.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that is a really powerful thing, because we are often limited by our own understanding. And so we accidentally will shift the problem from what it actually is to the thing that we can actually manage, which isn't a great in medicine. And it's also not great in marketing automation, though. Like it would be like if someone presented with you with a sore throat and an earache, and you immediately go, oh, it's this thing, because that's the simplest solution, as opposed to actually, let's actually listen to the other thing they said, which is that they've been getting a migraine behind their eye. And you go, hang on a minute, I need to investigate the combo. That's I kind of is the same. I'm told my dad's a veterinarian, but I have got no medical training whatsoever. So I am going to be totally speaking off. But I think it is that thing of like, I really like the idea of identifying the problem. Or you're kind of also in the business, I think you get potentially irritated or frustrated when you see a friction point where you go, this could run smoother, to make the business run smoother, to give a better experience to both my team and to our people.
Oh, for sure. When those things come across me or my desk, I get very, very frustrated very quickly when I see things not being done in an efficient or modern way, I guess. I like solutions to problems. Whenever there's a problem, I like to make sure that there's a solution to it. And like you said, it's important to step back and think, what is the problem? What are the possible solutions? And then choose the best solution out of all, the opportunities and the resources that we all have available to us.
So you'd have, like, on your website, you'll have things where people can download, and then they can get that information. Marketing automation's taking care of that. And then you would you've also got some post automation flows for people who've been prescribed, to remind them to prescriptions and things like that. You would also have some of those. Yeah,
totally. So we look at it into two things. We're looking at it into sort of the pre-conversion, I guess you could call it, before someone's actually converted or booked an appointment with us. So we look at that phase, and then we also look at the phase as to what happens after, because that's equally just as important.
Yeah, very.
It's very important. And so what we want to do ideally, and look, I'm not claiming that we've got it all right. We've got a lot of work to be done and we've got some big ambitions in terms of 2023 and how we're going to do a better job of what we're doing. But that's how we look at it. We say, well, how do we, educate someone, get them across the line so that they see that this is something genuine and possibly helpful for them, and then what can we do after that to make sure that they remain engaged with us, that we develop a loyal relationship with them. Because at the end of the day, and that's driven by a positive outcome.
Yes.
It's not a selfish type of like, oh, how do we make more money out of each person or something? Because that's very superficial and won't get you very far. Whereas you don't need to do that. All we need to do is think, how do we help that person achieve a good outcome, improve their quality of life? And if we're achieving that, then naturally it's going to work for the clinic or the business or any business for that matter.
And I really like that, because it's one of the things I teach my coaching clients. And it was a revelation for me probably about 3 or 4 years ago that I had realized, to my horror, that we were teaching, but also living this thing where we were doing a lot of that pre-marketing, but then we kind of like left our community, and I call them a community. It's kind of like people, other people we'd worked with before, it kind of left them, like they kind of, I wasn't putting the same effort into those people. And actually the people that have worked with us before, they've already chosen us. So they're more likely to choose us again, but it's our job to make sure that happens. And
Yes.
so I love that you're weighing those up and going, this is really important, because it's not just getting new people in the door. It's about making sure the people that chose you want to stick with you, not just for money, but also because you're serving them in a way that really meets their needs. And that makes the whole business satisfying.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Rachel, you should speak to Rod about that. I think he might be he might be able to help with that.
Oh no, I've been working, and we've got now. So I have stuff now. I have fixed it. I fixed it. I found holes. I mean, oh my gosh, I need to fix that hole. And so we've got like a portal that clients get, and they get now weekly stuff. And I get really upset after someone who's worked with us unsubscribes from that, because I'm like, I feel like I'm giving you so much value every week, and and obviously they haven't bonded, like there's a couple of people who've unsubscribed, and I'll go, oh my gosh, and then I'm sitting there trying to work out what I can be doing, because I care about those unsubscribes. I don't care about the other ones, but if I've worked with you and you unsubscribe, I really care about it, because I'm like, did I miss something that I am not doing to deliver to you? So I think that's a shared value that we have. So
sorry to unsubscribe from your list, Rach.
No, you haven't done a strategy with me. We're good. I would have noticed, and I would have brought it up in the podcast. Believe me.
Why did you unsubscribe?
Yeah, why did you unsubscribe? Actually, I have actually emailed one. I emailed two people once. One of them was actually subscribed twice by accident. So I was like, okay, no worries. So that was okay, but I do get deeply hurt by that. Do you also use marketing automation to help processes within your team, like to get communication going with like, hey, this person's at this step, or do you use them like to help communication that way as well as externally?
At this point, yeah, we do to a certain extent, but I must say that is one of the focuses for next year, is to implement a better internal systems for us. Because what we've realized this year is that as we've grown in our impact and we've helped more and more people, then our internal systems have struggled.
It's hard to get the balance right.
It's definitely challenging, yes. And so will be one of the focuses for next year, is to start introducing automation into our internal processes, get the communication more efficient and effective, which then basically reflects into better service, which then gets better outcomes for people again, and that feeds into
absolutely. It's just like giving that kind of sort of thing where people feel like they're all involved in it together. Like I think it keeps that connection. I always have a very simple one to explain how this can work, because we used to, when we had a bigger team in the office, Rod now does takes the rubbish out, but he used to have an email that went out to the person that was in charge of taking the rubbish out every time it was due out, to remind them that it was due to come out, because it was a friction point we would always forget. And like it's just so weird that you can do that as a marketing automation, but it actually is such a great idea.
Oh, totally. I mean, having said that, we did try, Rachel, during the year. We tried to switch into a different platform that would allow us to do that communication and that more inclusive process, using with another partner or agency that we used at that point in time. But the whole project crashed because they weren't able to deliver what was promised or what the scope of the work was. which was hugely disappointing. But yeah, I guess it's important to not be put off by those things that just don't go according to plan. And that's been one of also the other learning points for us is sometimes we've introduced various, approaches or things that we've done that's resulted in negative feedback. It's actually been quite, hurtful for our communication with the people that we're helping, but also internally for the team. Some emails, for example, we're getting very negative responses as being inappropriate, or not so much inappropriate, but not
Hitting the
speaking,
mark, not hitting the mark.
not hitting the mark. Yeah, it's, and people were getting confused by them, or some messages were not being interpreted correctly. And it's important not to cancel the whole lot and say, actually, this marketing stuff is not for me. I'm going to go back to my Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to go back to my phone calls, and this is how I like to do
idea.
Yes.
But it is, I do think that testing or that trial and error is a big part of it. And I do think that can feel quite exhausting when you're a business owner, because you can come into it with every expectation that's going to work, and even then it can backfire.
Yes.
And it is about testing. And then you've also, one of the other things I do know about you is that you are really strong on getting clear reporting so that you can actually see what's going on, like open rates and kind of where people are going. That's one of the things that is important for you, isn't it? To see, hey, what is working in our marketing and what isn't, so you can fix it.
Yes. Yeah, because data is quite important. And yeah, I think sort of looking back and going back, if I was to do everything all over again, I would certainly engage with people who are more experienced. So that forms the relationship of our clinic and obviously your business is that realization that actually I personally don't know everything, and what we've done is wrong, and we actually need someone who knows what they're doing to help us out. And having the ability to recognize our own lack of knowledge, I guess, or just lack of getting someone to do something properly. Because initially when we started, we were doing everything and we thought we had it right, but we were so wrong and way off on the mark. So yeah, recognizing that, and then once you've got the system in place, it's about understanding, well, is it working or is it not working? What's working? And that's where the data comes in.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately what guides decision making, I think, in any business, really, for that matter of fact. Because if you get the data wrong and you don't understand what's happening on the ground, then you could be misled and you could make the wrong decisions, and it could end up hurting you, or it could end up even costing the business itself if you keep making a series of wrong decisions on assumptions that are biased or unfounded, or just subjective opinions about what works or what doesn't work.
Yeah, it's quite easy to fall into a subjective idea, especially because it's hard to know what is working. And it might be the most surprising thing is actually causing like a bit of a ping or a dip, but you don't see it because you're assuming you're looking at the biggest symptoms that are coming up rather than the little one.
Yes.
Guess it gets down to diagnosis again. That's why you want the dashboards, isn't it? It's because you like diagnosing things correctly.
We want to diagnose, yeah. And maybe that's the medicine coming in.
I think it would be. It'd be that scientific thinking would be coming through with that. Do you feel actually that, because I always think that, it's interesting you said we started ourselves. I do think that platforms, and I'm going to put an ActiveCampaign in there too. We also use Zoho and a few other ones. But I think that one of the biggest mistakes business owners makes is they get sold on that it's an easy platform, and they are all relatively easy to kind of get started, but they have all these hooks in them. And I do think that one of the hardest things for small business owners is that actually to make any platform work, whatever platform it is, you often do need someone who's an expert in that platform to kind of get those things set up, unless you're just using it as a straight like email thing or just super straight. And I do think that's a bit rough on small business owners. Like I feel that it's like that. Then, Meta and Facebook has become more complicated, and everything seems to keep on getting more technical over and over again. And I do think that is I'm empathizing with this, but I think it is kind of a bit rough, that to make them work really well, you do often have to get an expert to kind of help with them.
Yes. Yeah, it does make it more difficult, but I guess it's also about prioritizing and knowing what your priorities are, because if you, generally speaking, the smaller the businesses, the more lower hanging fruits there are for them to pick off, and those lower hanging fruits are generally much easier to reach than some that are quite higher hanging. So for example, the simple things like getting your Google My Business up, or
Yes.
having a process of actually, people, engaging with that Google My Business by leaving reviews, or asking questions, etc. Just some form of basic email marketing, just the basic things generally make
They do. It's
quite a
amazing.
significant difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Google Business, have regular emails more than monthly, have a good Facebook page, and create content that's educational. And if you have that, no matter what business you are, that's good.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
you're supremely going over that now, but that is, you're right. Having those basics makes a big difference.
Oh, totally. And it's also like, it's also thinking outside of the box is really important. Like, if we were, I mean, look, we're not a small business anymore, but by all means, we don't have all the resources that we wish we do. And we, do everything that's in our heads that we think would be done. We'd love to do it, but we have to prioritize. And sometimes you just have to think outside of the box, in terms of what gains traction and what is likable. So for example, I often see posts on social media, and look, to be honest, our own posts are, probably guilty of that are so generic
Yeah.
that you would just flick over. And when you're flicking over your own posts, or kind of that kind of stuff, that you're doing something wrong. So for example, I got an email from one of the medical organizations yesterday saying, "Hey, we've launched our new website and come check it out, etc., etc." And I thought, like, did you guys think twice about sending that email? Because why would I actually be at all interested in
Oh,
your
such
new
a pet
website?
peeve of mine. I so agree with this. Like, why are you doing a post saying, come and check out my website? It's the most boring thing ever. And then when you have your own website, you really want to tell everyone to see your website because you're so excited about it.
I know, but it's like, actually, like, the person on the other end doesn't care whether you've got a new website or
You're the
you
only one
don't.
that cares.
You're
Yeah.
the only one that cares.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but whereas, for example, you see a post on social media of your local cafe making some really unique dish, or something, just like some really out there thing that's really odd, and it's literally a quick kind of 1-minute video of them doing something, or just being nice to someone, or doing something for their customer, then that will gain a lot more traction than investing in a whole website redesign and redevelopment,
Exactly.
and then sending an email about it, because it's going to get you
Yeah.
more traction.
Yeah, one of my clients, so I have a coaching group where for people who want to be the face of their business. And one of my clients did a video she does really good face to camera conversations. She works mainly with women who want to have, beat sugar addiction and things like that. So she's really good at what she does. But
Yes.
she had a video that went viral, and it was of her boiling an egg.
Right. Boiling
And
an
it
egg.
went completely nuts because people are fascinated by little boring things in our lives. And boiling an egg is very meditative to watch, like all the bubbles coming up. Like it's just, and she was just like, I have given so much value in these posts, and stuff. But the boiling the egg was just a complete one. And then, of course, people watch the other stuff. But it was a real reminder that we can get hung up on the things we think we have to tell people, but often just displaying, here's a really simple way of getting a very easy lunch, boil an egg. Sometimes what works best.
So it was literally just a boiling an egg video? Wow.
Well, how to boil it. She showed her technique of boiling an egg. Yeah.
How interesting. Well, maybe it was so mundane or so boring that it was actually entertaining to watch.
Mundane works. Like, like watching people pack a box, or like here's the process of like a day in a life of someone at the Cannabis Clinic. What do we do? How do we do that? That boring process is insanely fascinating to everybody, because I call it the goat in a tree moment, where like the goats in Morocco, they just climb trees, or they get lifted to trees, but they climb trees and they look out, and we take photos of them because we think they're amazing.
Yes.
But they are just doing their everyday job. And so documenting our everyday job is actually all we really often need to do, and just documenting but we get stuck on, we need to do the flashy website, or we need to do this thing, or here's this whiz bang thing. No one wants that stuff.
Exactly. I'll tell you a story of our own. We had a doctor conference that we attended in July or August, maybe this year, down in the South Island. And it was this is for other doctors to come in to learn about medical stuff, and we had a stall there for the clinic. And I mean, that's as boring as it can get, just standing there and talking to doctors about just medicine. So I said to the team, I said, look, guys, we just got to have a little bit of fun here and how to make it a bit more engaging and interesting. So we brainstormed, and then after some discussions, we said, okay, well, what we're going to do is two things. Number one is we're going to bake some brownies, and we're going to have it on the stall with our Cannabis Clinic logo on it, and just have it there on the table.
That is great, because it's that beautiful juxtaposition between, are they brownies or are they brownies? I love that. How hilarious. That is great. Were they popular, the brownies? Were they nervous about taking them?
Oh, I tell you what, the other thing we ordered was some with little pot plants, little cannabis plastic pot plants to put on the table there. Just for a bit of a laugh, because a lot of people haven't seen what cannabis looks like.
That's right. Yeah,
that's what cannabis looks like. So we had the brownies, and then we had the most hilarious responses to them. We had people coming back the following day saying they had the best sleep of their life, and then we had to go through the process of explaining that it was actually a joke. It wasn't like an illegal product that we were putting
That is hilarious. Also, that just goes to show, what's the word? It's completely gone for me now. The thing where it's like placebo. The placebo effect was totally working.
Placebo effect. It was working, absolutely. And one brownie actually made it from Christchurch, from a lady to her son to Auckland, who came to our clinic with the brownie, saying, look what I got from you guys.
I love that. That is so awesome. What a cool story. That is clever. Well, you know what to do if you ever want to do something that's like a guerrilla marketing thing. It definitely has to be about brownies.
It's got to be about brownies, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is awesome. Hey, I have had a lovely time talking to you. Do you want to just tell everyone, are you able to tell people where to find you? Is this going to break a rule? Are we okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
How do people find you if they feel that they might need to talk to somebody? They've got chronic pain. They might arthritis potentially is one that you would work with as well. Arthritis, chronic pain, arthritis. If there's like an ongoing condition that's causing a lot of discomfort, you've got anxiety, anything that you feel that might need a safe herb-free, plant-based pain relief or something like that, how would they get in touch with you?
Yes, so firstly, it's anyone who's struggling in their quality of life, who think that maybe medicinal cannabis could possibly help them. We can talk that through and determine whether, through a free phone call with one of our nurses to talk about whether this is even a possibility, for them or not. So anyone who could be struggling could talk to us. It doesn't have to be specifically severe or, have to be, very bad for them to be eligible to talk to us. But that can basically be done through our website, just cannabisclinic.co.nz. And our clinic location at the moment is in Takapuna, so that, whether that be in person through the clinic or online through our website, we'd be more than happy to help anyone.
Because you work with anyone in New Zealand, it's not just people who physically come to your clinic in Takapuna.
That's correct, yes.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. And I've really enjoyed it. And I know that Rod definitely enjoys working with you and getting all the challenges. So thank you. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Rachel.
You're very welcome.
If you love what you heard today, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you loved this episode in particular, I'd love it if you shared it on social media. Remember to tag me in so I can say thank you. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon.